David always liked being alone and stayed away from the busy lives of others. He lived in a quiet and beautiful neighborhood on the edge of Lyon, France. Many people knew who he was, but no one really understood him. To an outsider, he might have appeared as nothing more than a reserved individual, a man of few words, courteous yet distant. He was never one to cause trouble, nor did he indulge in idle gossip. His days were spent in quiet routine, his presence more of a background detail in the lives of his neighbors than an active part of their community. But there was something about David that defied easy explanation, something that ignited a curiosity in those who lived nearby, a curiosity that slowly grew into an obsession. It wasn't just his reclusive nature that made people uneasy, nor was it the way he avoided social gatherings. The true source of intrigue was the pattern that had emerged over time, an unsettling and inexplicable routine that no one could ignore. David was known for adopting children, not just once or twice, but almost every month. At first, the gesture was seen as noble, even inspiring, a selfless man dedicating his life to providing a home for those in need. What could be more generous? In a world where so many children were left abandoned, forced into orphanages, or shuffled between foster homes, David's actions seemed almost saintly. His neighbors, though puzzled, initially admired his commitment to charity and kindness. But admiration quickly gave way to unease. Despite the growing number of children supposedly living under his roof, the neighborhood remained eerily devoid of youthful energy. There were no playful shouts ringing through the air, no hurried footsteps rushing down the driveway in the morning, no bicycles scattered across the front lawn. No one ever saw the children attending school, nor did they catch a glimpse of them playing in the yard. The house itself, though well-maintained, bore the unsettling quiet of an abandoned place. At first, people rationalized the oddity. Perhaps David was an intensely private man, someone who preferred to keep his family life away from prying eyes. Maybe the children were homeschooled, shielded from the outside world by a guardian who believed in a different way of raising them. But as the months dragged on, and the same pattern repeated itself over and over, curiosity twisted into suspicion, and suspicion bred fear. The absence of life in David's home became impossible to ignore. There were no social workers dropping by for routine visits, no school buses stopping near his driveway, no traces of the lively chaos that should have come with caring for so many children. The house remained disturbingly silent, its windows shut tight, the curtains always drawn. Whispers spread like wildfire through the community. At first, they were little more than hushed theories exchanged in low voices between neighbors leaning over their fences. But as time passed, the rumors took on a darker, more sinister edge. Some believed that David was involved in something illegal, an underground operation of some kind. Others suspected something far worse, something too terrible to put into words. A few concerned citizens even considered calling the authorities, but what could they report? There was no clear crime, no concrete evidence, just an overwhelming sense that something wasn't right. Without evidence, people would see their worries as mere paranoia, empty claims against a man who, officially, seemed only kind and generous. Still, their feelings of unease did not go away. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky darkened into an inky expanse, a small group of neighbors decided they could no longer ignore the unsettling mystery unfolding in their midst. Their patience had worn thin, their anxiety growing unbearable. They needed answers. They waited until David returned home from his usual errands, watching as he pulled into the driveway, his movements as methodical as ever. As he stepped out of his car, the group of concerned neighbors took a collective breath, then approached him with hesitant but determined steps. The air was thick with tension. Trying to remain respectful, One of them finally found the courage to speak up, though his voice was laced with hesitation. "David," the man said carefully, choosing his words with great consideration, "we've noticed that you've been adopting a lot of children lately, and well, we never see them. We just wanted to ask why." There was a moment of silence. David looked at them, his gaze steady, unreadable. He didn't seem surprised by the question, nor did he appear offended. Instead, he simply studied their faces as if weighing his response. Then, to their astonishment, he smiled. "Come inside," he said, his tone warm and welcoming. "I'll show you." The neighbors exchanged puzzled glances. This was not the reaction they had anticipated. They had expected David to become defensive, perhaps even dismissive. They had braced themselves for vague excuses, half-hearted reassurances, maybe even irritation at their intrusion. But instead, David was inviting them in. Hesitant but intrigued, they stepped forward, following him as he pushed open the door and led them inside. What awaited them on the other side left them utterly speechless. The house was nothing like what they had imagined. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. They had pictured a crowded, chaotic home filled with the noise of children running amok, toys scattered everywhere, the walls marked with crayon scribbles. They had envisioned a household barely held together by frantic energy, overwhelmed by the sheer number of young lives under its roof. But reality was strikingly different. Instead of disorder, they found themselves in an immaculately maintained, purposefully designed space that felt more like a specialized care center than a traditional home. Educational materials and therapy tools were neatly placed along the walls, showing a well-organized and carefully designed space. Medical equipment was present but blended in smoothly, avoiding a cold or clinical feel. Instead, it quietly reflected the high level of care offered in this place. In the center of the living room, a large wooden table was covered in art supplies, brushes, paints, and colored pencils arranged with deliberate order, waiting to be used. A soft melody of classical music played in the background, adding an unexpected sense of calm. But it wasn't the decor or the organization that truly stole their breath. It was the children themselves. Scattered throughout the house, engaged in various quiet activities, were children with severe disabilities and complex medical conditions. Some were confined to wheelchairs, their bodies frail but their eyes bright with curiosity. Others had cognitive impairments that required specialized attention, their movements slow and deliberate. A few were nonverbal, communicating solely through gestures, facial expressions, or assistive devices. They were the forgotten children, the ones the foster system had deemed too difficult to place, the ones no one else had wanted. And yet here, they were not unwanted. Here, they were safe, cared for, loved. David turned to his visitors, his expression calm, his voice steady. There was no need for defensiveness, no need for justification. The truth of what he had built spoke for itself. "I know what you were thinking," David said, his voice calm but firm, his gaze steady as he looked at his stunned visitors. "You thought I was hiding something terrible in here. You assumed the worst." He exhaled softly, a hint of sadness flickering across his features. "But the truth is, I wasn't hiding something terrible. I was hiding them from a world that had already turned its back on them." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. He paused for a moment as if deciding how much to share, then finally continued. "I grew up in the foster system myself. I know what it feels like to be unwanted, to be shuffled from one home to another, never truly belonging anywhere, never knowing what family really means. The neighbors listened in silence, their earlier assumptions unraveling with each word he spoke. As a child, I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I would do something different. I wouldn't turn away from the children no one else wanted. His expression softened as he glanced toward the children in the room. I would give them the home that I never had. The reason the children were never seen outside was painfully simple. Many of them can't go outside, he explained. Some of them can't walk. Others have immune system issues so severe that exposure to the outside world could be dangerous, even deadly. That's why David had created this home, not just for shelter, but as a safe haven, a place designed especially for them. Every medical device, every therapy tool, and every structured routine was chosen to help these children live their best lives despite their struggles. And he had been doing it all alone. No government aid, no big organizations funding him, no desire for recognition. Just one man, quietly dedicating his life to children who had been forgotten by the rest of the world. The neighbors who had spent months whispering and speculating, who had built stories in their minds about sinister secrets hidden behind David's closed doors, stood frozen in a stunned silence. They had assumed darkness. Instead, they had found something extraordinary. As the truth about David's mission spread, the neighborhood's curiosity transformed into admiration. Soon, word reached beyond their small community. Social workers, touched by his dedication, stepped in to offer support. Nonprofits and volunteers began reaching out, wanting to help. Donations started pouring in. Medical supplies, therapy resources, even funds to expand his efforts. Doctors and nurses volunteered their time, offering to assist with the children's care. What had once been a quiet, solitary battle turned into a movement, a beacon of hope for children who had been left behind by the system. Yet through it all, David remained the same. He had never done any of this for recognition. He had never sought praise or attention. He had simply wanted to give these children a family. His story is a powerful reminder that the world is not always as it seems. Sometimes the people we judge the most harshly, the ones we suspect of wrongdoing, are the very ones making the greatest sacrifices. David's actions had shocked the neighborhood, but not for the reasons they had expected. He wasn't hiding something sinister. He was hiding love. He was hiding sacrifice. He was hiding an unbreakable, unwavering commitment to children who had no one else to turn to. Did you like this story? What do you think about David's behavior? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. We have the power to do so much good, far more than we can ever imagine. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.